Minimalism is really a tool for me to just prioritize and realize what's truly important for me and how can I be a better and happier human being that nobody tells me what to do. I just choose what I want to do. And that's what's probably the most important thing to me in life.
Welcome to KEAL, where we focus on personal finance, personal development, and online entrepreneurship. And on this episode, we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Liz from beautiful Toronto, right? Canada. Yes. Welcome, Liz. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. This is going to be really, really fun.
I'm really looking forward to it, Liz, and thank you for agreeing to be on this episode. And I'm really wanting to dig into your own personal experience on how you changed your life and how you see life according to this journey, well, we call minimalism, but I think just generally going through a different way of living, right? Because we like to focus on this channel, especially when talking about this theme of how important this became to you personally for wanting to have your life a certain way, change directions, what that all really means to you. So I want to really share with our audience, your story and where you're really trying to go. So can you tell us a little bit firstly about who is Liz, what makes her amazing, and why you decided to embrace this minimalist journey?
So I have a YouTube channel and an Instagram called Liz Shiro, Minimalism. I talk about minimalism and also just my mind and how minimalism is affecting my life. I became a minimalist in the beginning of COVID. I was moving out of my student housing. I was moving back home to my parents' house, and my boyfriend was helping me pack all my boxes. And I just stood there in the living room thinking, oh my God, I've bought so much stuff over the past 3 years once I was in my university. I studied in a super small little town, and there was nothing else to do other than shopping. And every single weekend, I would just go to the mall, whether it was with my friends or by myself, and I would just constantly buy stuff. And I didn't really realize how big of a problem that was until all of a sudden I saw all the stuff that I got from the attic from under the bed, and we barely fit them into the U-Haul. And it was a pretty terrifying experience. And when I moved back home, my parents also live in a condo in Toronto. And I was like, where am I gonna store everything? My teacher, he showed me Matt Diavella's video in my videography class. And I thought, I never knew what minimalism is, but I remembered this awesome video my teacher showed me. So I rewatched it, and I was in love with the video making, but I also loved the concept. So I kept on consuming minimalism content. And I was like, you know what? I do have too much stuff. Then I read a book about fashion, Project 333. It's very popular in the minimalist community. It's basically you wear 33 items of clothes for 3 months. I decided to give it a shot, and I kept on decluttering. I've decluttered everything from my childhood. I don't hold meaning to it at all. And most of the stuff I just genuinely don't really... I gave myself an elimination diet, basically, with my stuff. And that was really refreshing. And a lot of light was just it was just gone from my chest. It was wonderful. And now I continue with minimalism. Sometimes I fail a little bit, and I sometimes go and purchase things, but we're all human. It's okay. Minimalism is really a tool for me to just prioritize and realize what's truly important for me and how can I be a better and happier human being that nobody tells me what to do. I just choose what I want to do. And that's what's probably the most important thing to me in life.
Liz, it's interesting your story, and really the way you started, because what it sounded like to me at the very beginning of what you said is you realized when COVID started that you had too much stuff and you're like, okay, I need to get rid of it. And it seemed like that became like the reason after being inspired by another thing, right? Like for me personally, like the theme around minimalism was inspired by the documentary on Netflix from a while ago, and then really wakes up this kind of internal sensation. You like, okay, how does this have meaning in my life, kind of thing, right? But it seemed like you kind of realized this before getting inspired by Matt Diavelli's videos. Am I correct in insinuating that? Is that true? And then seeing his videos and everything that he put out, like, and continues to put out, like, that really expanded more and more your interest to get on this path in your life?
I think so. I knew about minimalism for a while, but I never thought that I would ever pursue minimalism, because it just was so foreign to me and I didn't really do any concept. But because I was put in the situation, people become minimalists for different reasons. It might be eco-minimalism, it might be money, or it might be something else. For me, it was more of like, I don't have storage for everything I want. But then I was going through, when I unpacked everything, I'm like, okay, I don't have space, but I also don't actually need this specific thing. Like, for example, a t-shirt that doesn't even fit me anymore. Like, do I keep it? Probably not, because honestly, like, women's bodies are always changing and it's okay. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed about that. And so there was a bunch of like hobbies that I used to play, the guitar and the violin, like that takes up space. And now that I don't actually play any of the instruments, what is the point of keeping those things in my life? But I truly think minimalism is not just about the stuff. It's fascinating because I started with the physical clutter, but then I was like, wow, this feels awesome. I have like nothing to clean. Like, my cleaning time went from an hour to like 10 minutes a day. And plus, I actually know exactly where everything is placed. And then I'm like, wait a second, I can apply this concept to my digital, like my social media, how I spend my time. And I think that's where it truly like, that's where the beauty lies. When you start applying that concept of minimalism to the rest of your life, that is not your physical clutter, but to the way you spend your time and to the way you set your priorities.
That's a very important point you're making, because I want to ask you this in a very like general way. Do you think this is actually fun, like going through this process? What I mean by that is, like, we lived through a compulsive way of our life. It's like, okay, I see that thing. I see, I have this in front of me. I'm just going to act on it, right? Without really thinking or critically thinking about it and what, the consequences or the result may be going through the thought process of it, right? For me, certain, like you're saying, aspects of this minimalism require a lot of intentionality and self-awareness. So, like, do you also find it for yourself enjoyable? Like, I get, like, I really got to think about this. It has to be part of my life, or does it? Is there like an enjoyment aspect to it?
I don't think in the beginning it wasn't fun at all, because minimalism really forces you to go outside of your comfort zone. And you know how a lot of people, they are scared to go skydiving, or they are scared to go downhill skiing because it's so scary and it's so outside of their comfort zone. It's like the same thing with minimalism, but in a different sense, where it's so outside of your comfort zone, you don't know what's there. So you're just kind of like trying this weird concept, but then eventually it starts to become fun. You are really like, oh, I don't need that shirt. I don't need that purse. Like, I don't like, it's almost becomes like a way of living your life, and you enjoy it because all of a sudden, like, you don't have any, like, you have less things to worry about, and you can actually like spend more time with your loved ones. Like, it's really hard to explain, because my friend, she is, I wouldn't say she is a shopaholic, but she owns quite a bit of stuff. And she told me that she wants to declutter and asked me for some advice. And I'm like, okay, prioritize. Like, if you haven't worn this in the past 6 months, declutter it. And she's like, I really can't, and she has way more stuff, but she uses all her things. So honestly, the concept of minimalism, yeah, I own less stuff than most people do, but at the same time, I use everything. But if you have more stuff than me and that what feels comfortable, like, do it, but like also step outside of your comfort zone, because minimalism will teach you more about yourself. It will teach you to be outside of your comfort zone, and it will teach you how to be a better person. You will potentially find journaling is very beneficial to you. And I'm going to be talking a lot about priorities, because this is something I truly find a lot of value in. Whenever you are eliminating all these distractions in your life, you then see like, okay, this is important, this is important, this is important. And like all of a sudden, life becomes more fun because it's clear what your purpose is.
We fortunately had a little bit of time before starting this episode to talk about who Liz is and a little bit about life and self. And you told me that there was kind of a wake-up call for you and going on this theme of purpose, but it also it was kind of parallel to downhill skiing. So can you give us a little bit of that story, if you don't mind, to our audience, and then how that awakened that sort of idea of the purposefulness that came to your attention for you?
In the beginning of February, I went downhill skiing with my boyfriend and his family in Calgary, in Nikiska, and it was so much fun. And I was going down the hill probably a little bit faster than I should have. I lost control. I hit a tree really hardly. And now for anyone listening to an audio, I'm in a cast. And I remember lying there and just like, it felt like I was lying there for hours, but reality was 5 minutes once they came and rescued me. And the recovery process, like the next few days, I was blaming myself that I went too fast. And I started crying because I really started questioning my life. I'm like, what am I doing? And before that, my boyfriend, he really pointed out, he's like, you're always burnt out by work. You're always burnt out and you're always so tired. And like, you're not fun. You need to relax, And so with the hand, it really made me like lie in bed because I was a vegetable for a few days. And it really made me question. I'm like, okay, am I on the right path? Am I gonna I'm starting a new job soon. Is it the right thing? Like I'm dreaming of working. Like that's what my purpose is. But then at the same time, I'm like, but my purpose with minimalism, I discovered like I really would like to spend more time with my loved ones. Like that's a really huge priority, which I haven't really been dedicating time to in the past. And this is something like the tree hitting the tree made me think, I'm like, what if I died? And all of those thoughts went through my head. It was just honestly horrible. And it really made me slow down and made me realize that if I died that day, oh God, I'm crying now. If I died that day,
right, I
wouldn't be able to just live. And I feel like I haven't really accomplished anything. And from that day on, I realized what's important to me, including spending more time with my family and loved ones. So that's a huge priority. And also other writing and creating content online, also very important to me. Mm-hmm. So this experience really taught me just to slow down and be myself, really.
Do you feel personally that there's certain pressures, I guess maybe on a more societal level, that we got to be a certain way, and what that ultimately does is burn us out, make us feel, drag us down psychologically, emotionally, everything else, to really connect with who we truly are and really embrace that? Do you feel like there is that push-pull aspect of how things generally are for most people?
Absolutely. I think, when I was in grade 12, in high school, my family was like, what are you going to do with your life? How much money are you going to earn? Who are you going to marry when you're grown up and adult? And it was a lot of pressure, and that's not just my family, that's the whole society. Like, there's a way of living, and that's like 9-to-5 job experience. A lot of people in the past, they would like get a job, like settle in with kids, and that's kind of the expectation. And I really didn't want that to affect me. Like, I knew that there was like something bigger than just a 9-to-5 job with kids and like a husband and a cute house somewhere, I really wanted to do something. And after hitting the tree, I was like, okay, I don't want to fit into those expectations of the people. And I just want to be able to do something like for myself. And I want to do something great. Definitely. And with minimalism, I feel like nobody expects to be a minimalist, because like the society tells us to like do the opposite. The society tells us to buy stuff like constantly, like the advertisements on social media, the advertisements, like there's constantly this like this concept of consumerism. That's what the world expects of us, to spend money and to just fill our lives with junk that we don't need. And you as a person choose to get that junk and bring it into their life, or you are able to make a choice and kind of leave that expectation behind and just not, and just live your life the way you truly want to live.
What do you think, Liz, is I mean, you've had a lot of revelations. I mean, you get just listening to you, I'm like, okay, she's really discovered a lot about life itself in recent times. I mean, which is great. Congratulations. And I mean, you're going to become probably one of the most influential people in the world the next 10 years. I can see it coming already, But what is like maybe one of the main things just about you, Liz, like your own self realization about Liz, like, oh my goodness, I never really knew I was this person. Like, is there something that struck like within you, like, oh my goodness, this is really who I am, and like awoke something in you? I don't know.
I think I have once I started minimalism, it was the first revelation that I was like, wow, I can do other things. That was probably the first revelation. I can't pronounce words. A revelation.
I can't
That's the word. But then as I go, I keep on discovering things about myself. And I think this thing that I genuinely discovered is that I don't live to work. Before that, I constantly imagined, as I mentioned, I want to be this like badass CEO woman who earns like $1 million, has like those stereotypical things. But now I don't necessarily know if I want that. And I know that because like work, we need money to survive. It's a fact. But can my life be just work? For some people, maybe. Like, I work for this lady and she is doing some amazing work, but I am helping her achieve her dream. And I'm honored helping her, but it's not necessarily my dream, It's really important to really tap in. If I don't want to dedicate my life to work, like, what is something else that I'm going to do with my life that is going to be awesome? And I think I haven't discovered what exactly it is yet, but at the same time, I know it's not, I don't dream of labor, as funny as it sounds, and anti-capitalistic it is.
But that's half the battle, is kind of knowing what you don't want to do either, right? And that's kind of part of the minimalist process, from what I understand too, is like sometimes it's not about what you really want, but it's also what you don't want or you don't need. And that's half the and then it opens up this other revelation of, okay, I really do want this. I mean, so as long as you can cross off the things that shouldn't be there, something naturally would probably come up in that way, you know?
Something that was I really battle with. I work in social media and I constantly check my phone. I think I'm not alone in this one. Many people are the same way. And I would constantly check, like, okay, how many views did my last reel get? How many views? How many likes did my last post do? It's addicting. Like, it's actually very exciting. So I told myself, I'm like, wait a second, like, by me checking my phone, I'm not like writing, or I'm not like creating content for other people. Like, I don't actually need to be online to create content. I basically decided I'm going to stop checking my phone, but you just can't just quit, because it's like literally addiction. Like, if you have a device in your home, like in your hand, for me, what at least happens, I immediately go on Instagram. And I got a second phone, which is anticlimactic, but I deleted everything off that phone except for iMessage. And that is the only way to reach me outside of my hours of not checking my social media phone. And I think that truly made a difference for me.
It's, you know, I want to stay on this topic a little bit, Liz, because I think it's incredibly important. And on KEAL and before that Spirit Lift, we talked to different experts who are really familiar with the effects social media has, especially on younger generations. And I'm really curious as well to ask you this, because, you know, me personally, I grew up as a kid in the 90s. Before, I never had a computer. Well, we did before I finished high school, but I never had a computer like most of my youth, or never a phone either. So I had a really different sort of experience personally, I feel like, with growing up, because there was just no technology. It was just like outside and that's it, you know, and watching Family Matters or Full House or whatever, you know. So we got home from school. But you know, I also have younger siblings, and they're much younger than myself, and they grew up with everything, meaning like all the socials, with, you know, having a phone pretty young. But, you know, I've seen, not with them specifically, but at least people I know maybe around them, like, there definitely is a certain impact on a lot of technology use and people's behavior or well-being. Is that, in your opinion, kind of an issue we have, especially the younger generations, with technology? Like, there is a certain, you know, mental health aspect with technology, whether it's just the use of it or how they interact with other human beings and the bullying. I mean, is that a real thing in your opinion?
I think it's a new way of living, really. We humans constantly have different devices that are coming out, whether it is a television or the radio. Like, with every single device, we're going to change. And having social media, like, I remember TikTok was not really a thing a year ago, for me at least, and for like my age group. But now I did an assignment for school on TikTok, and now I'm addicted. And you can spend like 2 hours without noticing, because I think TikTok is brilliant from a sense point of view, from like user experience design, because it gets you sucked in. And that's awesome for marketing. But also as human beings, like, when do we know how to stop? Like, we don't, because we can just keep on scrolling for hours. But at the same time, I do think there is a problem with the way people interact. I noticed during COVID, it was really difficult. It was very lonely from the point of view. I felt like I lost all my friends. I had a few people, like, I knew exactly who was there for me, because people actually stopped talking to me. And I thought we were like all besties, but no, it wasn't, you know, and it kind of really shows you, and it creates this illusion that you're always seen and not alone, but really you're just staring at the screen all day. And that's not what humans are designed to do. We're designed to like go out and talk to others. And I love that. Like, I'm a big extrovert. I love hearing other people's stories too. And I think it's wonderful. But at the same time, social media really did make that change in a sense where it creates an illusion that you're not alone, but you're really alone. So you're kind of like trying to mask that loneliness by scrolling on more TikTok because other creators make you feel good. But at the end of the day, when you put away your phone, you feel lonely. And I don't know if I'm alone in this. Do you think the same way? Do you find social media affects you like that too?
Honestly, I have to say I don't, because I'm going to be totally honest, and I've told a lot of other people this, over the years, is like, I feel so personally incredibly lucky that I grew up in the 90s, because it's really the last decade before everything got kicked off, because I do use my phone a lot also for work, I listen to a lot of, podcasts and YouTube things, all that. When I look at my phone screen, it shows, okay, you have had this amount of hours every day on average. I'm like, holy cow, that's insane. So I absolutely do use the phone a lot. But as far as how it affects me, like personally, or someone likes the thing or doesn't like it, or comments or doesn't, like none of that sways me at all. Because, and I don't know if that necessarily has to do with growing up in the 90s, not having that, but like my social construct and way of behavior with people is, I feel really different, like, I don't know. I just, something tells me personally that that's just the way I grew up, and I don't need to depend on it, kind of thing, right? But it's not really like that with the reason I say like generations coming up now, like born after 2000 and that kind of thing, is because like you're talking about the addictive aspects of these platforms. When you go to a restaurant or you're seeing families with their kids, it's like parents on the phone, kids on a tablet thing, da da da. And the minute you take it away from them, there's a lot of shouting and screaming, and it's utter chaos. So cognitively, like whatever you're ingrained with, especially between being born and up to 7 years old, those will become permanent habits the rest of your life, So it's going to be a whole different world about 20 years, I think, so who knows,
I think people will adapt to
Mm-hmm.
having social media in their life and kind of find that balance. I don't think we're there yet. At least I am not.
Right.
And I'm genuinely very curious. I'm gonna go after this podcast and do more research about this topic, because you got me.
No, it's definitely interesting to see all these correlations, because in the end of the day, like, however we're using our eyes and our minds and all of our sensory experiences day to day, that will by default have some sort of influence on us, unconsciously. Like how, so what I mean by that is, if, we were like, I don't know how many decades ago, but people who just lived in the woods, maybe hundreds of years ago, I don't know. But if we just lived in the woods and we're in nature and all that each and every day, we would have different sensory experiences. But the interaction of it physically with a technological device absolutely does have some kind of ramification. There can't be any way around that, I can imagine, So, and Liz, I only unfortunately have time for ask you one more thing. We'll have to do a part 2 in some part in the future, if you be open to that, because I really want to ask you so many other things, but for our time's sake, we don't have as much as I would really hope for. But let me just conclude on this last question. And, it's been an excellent conversation with you. Very scintillating, very inspiring, very, a lot of great revelations. And I truly thank you. I do, like, especially like, what would be your advice, especially for people who might find this difficult to start or want to actually implement in their life? What would be maybe a couple, 2 or 3 tips that you could give people to very practically start their own process of doing this and their own way of going through this, whether it be decluttering in a certain way and only having the right material things in your life, or maybe keeping in mind the finances in their life and not just spending, or relationships? whatever it might be, what are generally some good thought process kind of practical steps you can give people who maybe are interested in embark on this journey but don't know how to start?
I think it's very important to know what is important to you or is not important to you. And I recommend basically an elimination diet, but with your stuff. You honestly, it's magical. Once you take away all the things that you really don't need, your brain really starts realizing the things that you do need. And in fact, the things that are very important to you. So don't go in and just declutter everything. Maybe start with your bathroom or start with your living room. And if you don't feel like you don't want to throw out everything, just put them in suitcases or boxes and store it away from your eyesight for a few months. Journaling is a really awesome tool to really just ground yourself and really ask yourself, those things that you put away, like, are you even thinking about them? Probably my guess is going to be no, because I didn't. And everyone who I know have been on this journey also felt the same. And if you really want to discover who you are, just do that. Honestly, you're going to have an amazing time. Also, consume the content that you truly want to consume, whether it is about minimalism or productivity, like the things that truly like matter to you. And that would be basically my advice on how to really discover your healthy mind.
And we'll have to go more into that in a future episode, if you agree, like about the healthy mind, and something that you advocate for a lot too, and that's really part of your content. So I'd love to do that at some point. And I think it's really important, especially if people, as you said, like to start with something, can be probably the best thing. Like you're insinuating is like the most inanimate object that like you really have no emotional attachment with, like just an old toilet paper roll or floss box, whatever. You should floss, but throw away the old one if it's done, but things like that, just get in the habit, like creating those habits to be able to, move the needle into the other direction. I'm sure the biggest thing, like at some point, is like how you have to say no and let people go. That's probably the hardest part,
I find the hardest part with this journey is actually detaching yourself from the stuff. Right now, if my house burned down, I will be sad because my house burned down and I have nowhere to live. But all the things that you see around me, like I can get them again. And that's totally okay. I have a box of sentimental things. Like that's probably the most important, but like it's in a little box. I can just grab it and go. Everything else, like honestly, you will find the things that matter to you and you will detach yourself from other things emotionally. You're going to feel so much lighter and so much better.
That is truly inspiring. Thank you so much, Liz. And I'm sure people will really be inspired themselves by hearing that from you. And, just encourage everyone out there watching, listening, just to take one small step, whatever it is, but just put something into action, implement it, and see where it takes you after that. That would be so great. So Liz, where can our listening and viewing audience, find out more about you, what you do, follow your content? Where can they follow that?
So I have two platforms where I mainly post. The first one is my Instagram, Liz Shiro Minimalism, and the other one is my YouTube channel, Liz Shiro. Just type in Liz Shiro in the search bar, and I'll pop up. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. This was so much fun, and hopefully people will take away some things from this podcast. I'm very, very fortunate that we connected.
So am I, likewise, Liz. And as you said about digital minimalism and technology in general, if you're going to trim down on your watching content, at least keep Liz in mind and watch hers, so that would be really good.
Oh my God. Thank you.
so we thank you so much, Liz. We really appreciate you being on this episode, and thank you all for watching and listening on all the platforms. And we'll make sure to include all of Liz's information in the pinned comments, the show notes, the descriptions, everywhere as we usually do, so you can connect and follow her. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all in the next episode.